bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening, Fade to Black. How you doing? How was your weekend? Was it good? Mine was busy. All kinds of stuff went on this weekend. Today is, what is the date today? Oh, today's August 12th. It's Monday, August 12th. And let me back up here and let me line up my thoughts with the show. Today is Monday, August 12th. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. And we are now officially kicking off another week here on Fade to Black. Tonight, the one and only Derrel Sims is with us. As I like to say, the alien hunter. Yeah, Derrel Sims is with us. Tomorrow night, Lon Strickler is here. He's back. And tomorrow night, we're going to be talking about Mothman and winged humanoids. Wednesday night, Michael H. Brown is here, a very prolific writer, blogger, and an author and researcher. And it's going to be a wide-ranging show on Wednesday. So I've just called the show Our Paranormal World. We've got lots of things that we are going to get into on Wednesday night. And then Thursday, it's our once a month AMAAJA, Ask Jimmy Anything. And besides tonight's show with Derrel, it's my favorite night of the month. I'm just being straight with you. I just love doing those AMAs. And so that is going down Thursday night. I do have 3 major events between now and the end of the year. Coming up next is Contact at Sea, that cruise to Alaska. Our guest tonight, Derrel Sims, is going to be on that cruise. We have a few rooms left. You can head to the links below. The ship itself is sold out. There's a $500 discount right now. Click on the link below, Contact at Sea, and come and hang out with us. Man, the list of speakers, we just had Melanie Aguirre on the show. She's going to be there. Derrel's going to be there. Seth Shostak's going to be there. Grant Cameron's going to be there. Daniel Sheehan is going to be there. We've got a very, very, very prestigious list of speakers. And so come and hang out with us. Let's go to Alaska. Coming up after that is Egypt. That tour is in October 3rd through the 14th with Billy and Elizabeth Carson. And that is also sold out, but you can get on the waiting list below and also sign up for the tour next year for 2025. The links are below, forbiddenknowledge.com. Then, when I get back from Egypt, I go down to Peru and Bolivia again this year with Brian Forrester. And again, that's been sold out. We now have, I think, I should have checked today and I didn't. But I think we have a couple spots available. And that is November 15th through the 27th. Same situation there. You can get on the waiting list if it is sold out. Links for that are below. And I wanted to say something. It's this. So on Saturday night, I had Jordan Ziff, one of the great guitar players on planet Earth, come by the house. Jordan is starting a podcast. So, he calls up his friend, calls me up and says, hey, man, I just, let's go through the gear. I want to go through your studio and I need some pointers and I want to bring my producer out. And I said, hey, man, any excuse to have you over at the house and let's, eat some food and drink some beer and have a good time. And we'll do that. And so this is Saturday night. And so he was here for a few hours going through. I like teaching. It's a lot of fun. And he's just so smart and and things, and he can play his butt off. Anyway, so I decided to show off a little bit. I kept telling him this studio is complete. It's a working studio. And once everything is set up and you can do all of that really quick for a show, boom, you can go live and it's ready to go. He's like, really? Well, how easy is it? I looked at the clock and it was 5 till 7. I go, we're going to go live in 5 minutes. He goes, what? And right there, I created the graphic, got that up, got the show popped, got it uploaded, got it ready, went over to YouTube just to double check everything. Now it's like 2 minutes to 7. He rushes out to go do his hair and makeup and comes back in and wiring in headphones. In 5 minutes, we went live on the air. But that's not what's important. What is important is that this show, when I have a guest on like Derrel Sims, it's about respect for my guests, respect for the audience. There could be kids in the room. I try not to use bad language. I try to keep everything, because, wow, that was a loud Harley. I'm in a soundproof room. What kind of pipes are on that bike? Anyway, see, that's how I think now. And, but it's always about respect. But Saturday night with Jordan, it's just like, let's go. And there were more F-bombs dropped per minute than probably like Joe Rogan. I gave Joe Rogan a run for his money. And it was really fun. It was just a conversation on things. And if you want to go and check out, I'm going to use the word unfiltered, right? An unfiltered Jimmy. Go and check out the show from Saturday night. We had a lot of fun. But now I have to get back into filtered zone. Why? Because Derrel Sims is here and he intimidates the crap out of me. That's right. Derrel Sims is here. He is the alien hunter, and he has been removing metal devices and implants from people for almost 4 decades. As such, he has amassed the largest collection of evidence of human alien contact, as well as some pretty interesting theories on the subject as to why exactly what is causing it, who is doing it, who is visiting us, where are they from, how do you defend yourself, and all of that other stuff. His resume is really long. If you want any information, head over to thealienhunter.com. And I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black my good friend Derrel Sims. He's right there. Derrel, my man.
All right. That's the man I've been waiting to see and talk to for a little while. I enjoy your show. I love your work, and you're a total trip. No question about it.
Well, see, now here's the thing, Derrel. We're friends, first off. We've had many shows and interviews and conferences that we've done over the years. And it's like, how do I start the show off with Derrel and ask him a question that I've never asked him before? Right? So I got to think about that for a minute, because you and I mean, how many dinners have we just sat for hours and just talked about the subject, right? Okay, but I got the question. You ready? And you've never been asked this before.
Okay.
Are you okay? I got to get my game face on. Game face on. I'm being serious now. Are you getting royalties from Resident Alien?
No, but I should. I get calls from people all the time saying they had you on the last time. They used your image, and it was definitely you. And then I said, yeah, but I think they killed the guy. And they said, yeah, he died, but now he's back. And it's a riot listening to the people.
Well, yeah, it's a great series, and I love it. Right? It's amazing. Yeah. And so, I'm cranking through and watching the series just like everybody else, going through, really enjoying it. And then the first time they said, I think that's the alien hunter. Yeah, that's him. Oh, there's something going on. And I said, I stopped and I went, did they just say the alien hunter? And then they cut to him. I forget the actor. He's great, right? But they cut to him. Dude, he's dressed and the whole thing. And now look, the royalties part I say in jest, but that's a mad amount of respect coming your way. And it also shows the attention to detail that the writers put into this show. They know the community, they know the characters, they know the people that are here, and you represent it, man. And it's actually very, very cool, isn't it?
Well, it was, but by the same token, you and I and others were just in Manchester not long ago, and guess who hosted that thing? You got up there and introduced everybody and did the everything, and there's a reason they chose you. It's not a compliment, it's just simply a fact. You do marvelous, you really do.
That was a lot of fun in Manchester, but what I'm always watching and observing and seeing what's going on, and your crowd that was hanging around you like at all moments, it shows you that it's not just a U.S. thing, it's not an American thing, the phenomenon, but that the rest of the world is also paying attention, and they know everybody that's involved with it. And you were just like the highlight of the weekend for everybody there. That's got to make you feel pretty good that you don't have to go, oh, my name is Derrel. No, they know all about you. And that's got to be a pretty good feeling that the people interested in this subject understand it deeply, don't they?
Well, they do, and the best thing I liked about it is they enjoyed the whole program, which involved a plethora of points of view, and I like that. I think the people ought to be informed, and you ought to hear as much as you can, and come up with your own ideas from that point.
And now, let's go backwards for a second. I actually, for those out there that may be listening to you for the first time, okay, but something that you and I haven't really talked much about is not how you got interested in this, but your first contact experience. Was it a paradigm shift? What happened, and did you understand what was happening when it went down?
It's a great question, and it's a perfect place to start. I was 4 years old in Midland, Texas, 1005 South K Street. And my mother, who just recently passed away, told me before she passed away, she said, "You couldn't remember all that, Derrel. You're only 4 years old." I said, "Mom, I know the address of the place. I didn't tell you the phone number." I said, she said, "How do you do that?" I said, "Because I lived there. You know, I'm not stupid. I can remember things." So I remember very well. And about 3 in the morning, I noticed something very strange. It was very cold. It was in the winter time. And the short version of this is the details are very significant because it's a little different than some abduction stories, and I'll put it together for you. And it'll tell you pretty much my whole story once you get that one down. I sensed something wrong in the room. I set up, and there was this entity leaving the room. He was walking toward the wall. I thought he was going to bump into the wall, and I said, "He's going to bump into the wall." I thought that in my head. And interestingly enough, he turned around immediately, apparently hearing what I said in my own head. And he turned around, and I heard in my head for the first time, I don't hear voices like some people might, but I heard for the first time in my head him speaking, and he never moved his little mouth. He said, "It's awake." And I realized there's only two people in that room, and he's talking about me. And I'm not supposed to be awake. I'm supposed to be conked out and laying on the bed, and events over, he's leaving. When he turned around, I looked at him like 4-year-old kids would, not like an adult. An adult might say, "Oh my gosh, that's probably an alien being from another world," or "I'm scared," or "I'm happy," or whatever. I didn't. I simply looked at him and wondered, where's his clothes? It's wintertime. I mean, it's freezing. I'm under these quilts. And I looked at his head. Of course, he had big round eyes that were an inch and a half across, solid black, but they were perfectly round. He was an earlier model from what the models we have currently. And I'll get into that later if anybody wants to talk about it. The second thing I noticed, he didn't have a nose. There were just two little pinholes where a nose was supposed to be. He didn't have any ears. I looked and he had a slit for a mouth, little tiny slit. And he never opened it, his speaking was from voice to skull. I mean, it was that simple. As I looked further down from his skinny little neck down to his body, where there's no clothes, I noticed he didn't have any mammary glands. He didn't have a belly button. And I thought, well, where's his belly button? And I looked further down and he didn't have a TT. He didn't have a TT. And I'm really confused at this point because I mean, kids, they notice stuff like that. You don't have any clothes on. That you're in his room. You know what that. So it took me years to figure out later that if you don't have a belly button, you weren't born, and if you don't have genitalia, you don't reproduce. You are hatched, cloned, made, or manufactured. And that's the view that I've come to about this. But the most important thing about this event was something happened in that event, probably quite accidentally. You're familiar with the concept of a hot mic, like when a mic might be on when a president or somebody is talking and their mic's supposed to be off and it's on and they say things they shouldn't and they get caught. Well, for some bizarre reason, I was hot micing him. In other words, I was under his control as an abductee, but I was also listening to him talk to whoever else he was communicating with, and he didn't know I was listening. I've been able to do that for the next 13 years of my abduction experiences. My abductions ended at age 17. And people always ask me, well, how do you know so much about the alien? You've been reading a lot of books and making up your theories? I said, no, I don't read books on alien stuff. I wrote a couple of them, but only because people screamed at me to get them done. I said, my point is simply this. I know a lot about them because I've heard a lot about what they talk about. Not what they tell you or tell me, but what they say among themselves. That's what I want to know. That's the important thing about my event, in my opinion.
Did he at some point figure out that he was on a hot mic?
No, he never did. And the reason is because I did, this was accidental. Later, I learned how to do this during these other abduction events so that I could still listen to them. And as long as I stay, quote unquote, abducted and under their total control, in their opinion, I can hot mic and I get to hear what they're actually communicating with. Like, for instance, they get their large black eye, that big black eye right next to your face, your eye, and then they'll program you and say, you won't remember. And most of the time you won't, or you'll remember a screen memory. So that's what happened. And that hot micing continued for the next 13 years of my abductions.
Now, I remember, I actually want to get into this a little bit deeper, but I remember the first time you and I talked about screen memories. This is probably 10 years ago. And for a lot of people, now, if you're into the subject and you're going in deep and you understand about therapy and hypnosis and what screen memories are, that's one thing. But for those that don't, it's a very strange thing, and it could be misinterpreted, right? But it can. So we'll get into what a screen memory is here in a second. But let me tell you my experience, personal experience, because I didn't know, right? I don't know. So finally, I have a session, and I do it with Sarah Bresserman Cosme. And we did it for my TV show. Okay. So there was cameras rolling and things, but I went under pretty quickly. But the point about the screen memory, now, I don't know if this is a screen memory, but what she revealed, and which now today I see crystal clear, right? But she brought out of me this experience that I had only a year ago. It wasn't that long ago. And where I was brought aboard this craft, and I was on the craft for just 5 seconds, long enough to see around the room. But I didn't know about it. I didn't know, man. I didn't know. And I'm in this session, and I come out of the session, and I was a little foggy, and I was like, okay, what did I say? Okay, all right. And I'm kind of remembering the session, and then I saw some tapes of it later, but that event I didn't know about. I simply did not know. Now, was there a screen memory, you know what I mean, placed in front of that, so I never had access to it? But I've got to tell you, it was shocking to me, and now, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That memory's unlocked now. It's unlocked. I've got it. Yeah, it's crazy. So because I didn't know about it, I don't know what the screen memory was, but could there have been something placed in front of it that blocked access? I don't know how else to say it.
Well, let me go back to my event at age 4, and I'll illustrate the point from because that happened to me. The entity at that point, once he realized that I'm wide awake and I'm supposed to be asleep, and he realized he's got a problem. He's got to fix this problem. I'm not supposed to remember. So, long story short, he moves toward me, and that's the only time I ever felt fear. I wasn't afraid of him. Didn't have a clue. Didn't know why he was in my room. Where is his clothes? All this sort of thing. Even though he looked weird, I wasn't afraid of him. But at that moment, he projected this concept of fear. The fear mechanism is a control technique. They use different things when fear is one of them. And I instantly felt the most horrific fear. At 4 years old, you don't know much fear about anything. And I had never experienced anything like that. What he did, he's transferring his fear to me. They live in that kind of an existence. Like I said, again, you don't know that unless you're overhearing where they live and what they do. But anyway, he transferred that to me, and I'm absolutely paralyzed, and he's moving toward me. I fell back on the bed, and he kept moving toward me. I'm on a little tiny cot, a little army cot. We were quite poor, and he's moving toward me, and I pushed so hard against the wall and the little cot that it V'd apart from the wall. In other words, made a space there, and I fell. My rear end and legs were on top of the bed, and my back and my head bounced off the floor, and he couldn't get to me at that point. So he did every child's nightmare. He lifted up the covers of the bed underneath and put that large bulbous head very close to me with those big black eyes. And at that instant, a lot of people say he shapeshifted. He didn't shapeshift. I know what a shapeshift is versus a screen memory. He used the image of a clown, a pure white faced clown with red hair, big eyes. I mean, just like a horrific clown. And many abductees have clown phobias, and they have no idea where they came from. I'll give you a hint. And so he tried to make me think that I had a bad dream and it was of a clown, and that's what it was all about. Well, I kept shaking my little head, no, because I'm hearing him still talking to whoever he's talking to, and they're telling him what to do. And so I realized even at 4 that something's wrong with this picture. So the next thing I know, I woke up the next morning on the bed, covered back up properly, and my parents were very alarmed because they saw that I was traumatized, and I would not tell them why, because he told me not to tell anyone, and I didn't. In fact, my mother was like 94 years old when I finally told her. And she said, "Why didn't you tell us way back then?" I said, "Because of that dumb looking Boo Radley look on your face that I see now. I did not want to see at age 4. And I tell you the truth about something. I don't need your unbelieving eyes and ears to listen. So that's why I didn't." So a screen memory people often will think they had a strange dream. But I had a strange dream, and they won't even identify it often as an abduction. They'll say, "Had a strange dream, but it was absolutely real. There was a white horse came in my room, or an owl, white owl with large black eyes, or it could. Here, I'll give you different ones. Dennis the Menace. Three aliens came in one guy's room, and he identified them as Snap, Crackle, and Pop. The serial people.
Right.
The whole point is they use imagery in your head. Whatever comes in there, that's going to be the imagery, and
you'll never question it.
You either trust it or you're terrified of it, which doesn't matter. Whatever it is that they can control you with and get their deal done, whatever that program is, that's what it's going to be.
Now, you described as, the eyes and the, was it what would we call a typical gray? What category did he fall into?
The alien would be what we would refer to as a gray. I told this story in early 1990s in Chile when I was there in the country of Chile. And a lady came up to me afterward, freaking completely out. She said, "I believe your story." I said, "Why do you believe it?" She said, "You're the only person that ever described round eyes on an alien." She said, "I was abducted back in the 50s as well, and they had round eyes like that back then too." So that was a confirmation I got from someone else along the same lines. But it was a gray alien as far as everybody's concerned. The only difference was that its eyes were perfectly round, not the almond
shape
eyes that you see everywhere. Right. It wasn't a Hollywood version.
Right. Going back to, my question is this: how many different? My answer is infinite. Okay, that's my answer to this question. How many different types of advanced extraterrestrial species are visiting this planet? My answer is it's like infinite. The universe is just too big. I don't think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, or 20 or 100. That's my take. But what do you think?
It's a good question, and the real answer to it is I think both of our answers are going to be correct. One is there's an infinite amount of stuff out there, and there's probably an infinite amount of beings of some kind, good, bad, evil, whatever entities are out there. But there are 7 particular kinds that are visiting Earth right now that are introducing themselves to abductees. The 7 that are introducing themselves to abductees, this will be a little controversial, and it's okay. It's just a viewpoint. Nothing I want to get beat up over. But 7 primary types. The little gray alien, I'll give several of them. He's a little guy. He can be anywhere from 2 feet tall to approximately 3 feet. And I'll tell you a little bit about him if you want to know. He's got an IQ of about 80. That's a moron. He makes mistakes. He can't get your clothes on right. You wake up in the morning, your clothes are on inside out, backwards, and you can't figure out why you're sleeping in another room. He makes mistakes. The second one is a gray alien, just like him, but taller. This guy's got an IQ of about 135, 140, really smart. If there's any cutting going to be done on you, like implants or something like that, that's the guy that's going to do it. The third being is an entity that looks like a reptile. And the fourth entity that shows themselves in these events is a praying mantis. I met one of those in the 3rd grade in one of my events. He's about 7.5 foot tall. I've even got a painting of him from one of my abductees. They painted a picture of him later as he was abducting this woman and a boy and this 17-year-old kid. And he literally painted a picture of the whole scene. And I have it to this day. Then another entity is a Nordic human-like being. And some people think, well, those are the gods or whatever. No, all 7 of these beings are made, hatched, cloned, or manufactured from my research for over 40 years. The so-called Nordic is a human being-like entity, and again, he's part of that program. And another, I'll name one more, and this is going to get under some people's skin. He looks like a giant ape-like creature. He's about 7, 8, 9 feet tall, called Bigfoot. We even have him in abduction experiences, believe it or not.
Wait, I saw him in Star Wars. There,
Yep,
and I'm making, like a funny ha-ha,
Sure.
but I'm just going to say this. Lucas did that for a reason. That's just my take. And I'm not calling some big conspiracy thing, but everybody has seen Star Wars. Everybody, is not only familiar with the imaging and that there's that part of it, but the same amount of people have all heard the Bigfoot stories, and nobody wants to like put the two together.
Yeah,
It's like, wait a minute, doesn't that make sense? It makes sense to me. It just does. And so I'm with you on that. I'm okay. I'm okay with the Bigfoot ET connection for sure.
Well, the interesting thing about him, we've seen him on board a craft that was 50 miles thick, 600 miles across, and we actually have a video of the craft. Not taken by us, but by astronomers in Japan who were filming the moon at the time of the abduction of December 8th and December 11th, 1992. 8 people were taken, and they described absolutely amazing things. One of the things there at that point, all of those entities I described to you were there, but so was the Bigfoot.
So Wookie was there, and now, each one of the different types that you described, those 7, are they still humanoid? Are they bipedal? Are they 2 arms, 2 legs, and a different head? Like, say, for instance, the praying mantis. Is it just the head that is praying mantis, or are they just a full-size insect?
It's the whole thing.
The whole thing.
His IQ is about 180.
Now that scares the crap out of me. A smart praying mantis.
He will get your attention and will keep you focused at all times.
Now, are they okay? Can we stay right here for a second? I've got a million questions. So let's just stay right here if we can. The image, I've never seen a praying mantis being. Okay, I've seen a couple of things, but everything was always just kind of normal to me, right? Head, shoulders, arms, feet. Okay, all right. Difference, but basically, nothing. But the thought of a giant praying mantis is scary. But are they mean, or do they have an agreeable personality?
They're
am I asking
controlling. Extremely controlling, and
right.
They run the show. Some people like them, and again, when I have to work with people using our techniques of NLP, hypnotherapy, and other methods of memory recovery, to find out how much of what they're telling me is memory, or how much of it is screened, or how much of it is altered because of your subconscious will do things. It'll protect you to no end, and it will block out things so that you won't remember if you can't deal with it.
But that the experience that I just described to you, I'm not going to get into detail, that Sarah revealed during therapy, during the session, I was not scared. In fact, the situation was pretty dang cool, Derrel. I'm telling you right now, I was okay.
People have both kinds of experiences.
I was totally okay with it, right? But if it would have been a ship full of praying mantis beings, I don't think I would have been as cool with it. My first reaction would have been different than the way I actually ended up feeling.
Agreed.
Oh, you froze up. Okay,
yeah,
let's
I'm
see.
Frozen here for whatever reason.
Yeah, you're frozen, but it should unfreeze.
It'll unfreeze.
We'll see if it. But at least you're frozen in a good seat. Now, if I freeze, right? I'll be like this. It'll be, I'll have some stupid look on my face. At least you look normal, right? In your frozen state. In your frozen state. So these 7 types, are they ever in the same place at the same time?
It's extremely rare to see that. Most of the time, you will see the little gray, bringing you to the other gray, or to a reptile, or to the mantis, or even the Nordics bringing you to one of the others for whatever it is they've been ordered to do. And to explain it to the audience, to make my viewpoint a little clearer, in my view, these 7 types, and I've looked at them very carefully for a long time, they, based on my research, are beings that they are transgenic beings. They're made, hatched, cloned, or manufactured for the purpose of making people believe that these are the aliens from other planets. If they're aliens from other planets, I assure you, these are not them.
Explain.
These are for something totally different.
Okay, take that a step further.
Sure. The again, if you could overhear what they're discussing, not what they may tell you or show you, you get another viewpoint here. And so I'm hot micing some of my information here. These entities are made, hatched, cloned, manufactured by something far bigger than they are. And whoever that is, in my opinion, showed up in my room in my last event at age 17. And people always ask me this all the time. Please tell us all about it. Describe what you saw. And I said, no, I never have. And I said, every time I even talk about it, people always call me up and say, oh yeah, me too. And I said, good, then you describe them for me. But there were 5 different entities, and they don't show up in any UFO literature at all, period. So the question is, who are they? The simplest answer I can give anybody is these are the guys that made, hatched, cloned, or manufactured the 7 entities that are here posing, quote unquote, as aliens from another world.
Let me try something here. Let's see if this brings you back. Okay, yeah. You are actually gone, Derrel. So I'm going to ask you to leave the studio and come back. Okay. Just leave. Leave right now and come back. I'll just talk. Okay. I'll just talk. I'll wait for you to come back in. And we'll get the video reset for everybody. Let me pull Derrel out. You are out. Okay, Derrel, just leave the studio and come back in. And one of the reasons that I'm asking Derrel these specific questions about the different types, I feel that the more people come forward and talk and are comfortable in talking about these subjects, that it's not repeating. They are describing different types of beings. And I don't think that they're what the skeptics or the debunkers and the naysayers out there, they're just repeating what somebody else has said or what they've read in a book, what they saw on TV or TV series or a movie or a film. And I simply don't believe that that's the case. And we are seeing more and more evidence of that as time moves forward, where people are trying to describe these encounters and what they are seeing and how they are seeing it and what the atmosphere is around it, and then what may precede or end each experience with the craft. It's varied and it's wide. And so years ago, I had told everybody about my experience in 1995 that I had in my bedroom when I was alone, but I never have, and I still haven't, described what was in my presence. And I've never done that because I don't want to influence everybody else. Number one, I don't want to do that. I want you to have your own memory and your own experience, and I don't want it to be clouded. There's that. But the other part is for me. When somebody tells me about their experience, I'm trying to make the connections from what I personally saw and witnessed. And in a lot of cases, and most of them, it's not what I saw. And I find that really, really interesting. And then when we go to specifically, and that's why I was asking Derrel about this, Derrel mentions, the small mouth, the 2 dots for the nose. The mouth wasn't moving. And when there was speech happening, my experience with Sarah and what I saw and what I witnessed was like nothing I had ever heard anybody talk about, anything I've ever seen in any TV show or movie or any books that I've read or documentaries. Never. And that I found very strange. I did go into that in great detail since then because I talked about it in the regression. You can go and watch that episode of Into the Vortex, and I describe those beings to the best of my ability with what I saw. But what I saw didn't scare me. And you would think now, if I was, I guess the best way to put it, if I was awake, like if I walked into my house and I saw something like that, or, walked into a room and turned on a light and saw something like that, I would probably freak out. But I didn't in this case. That was something that I felt so comfortable with and I was okay with. And I think the major part about that was the way that they presented themselves. That it wasn't offensive. It wasn't negative. It wasn't like overwhelming. And it wasn't any of that. No, it was just like I was hanging out in a room of friends or coworkers. That's the best way that I can explain it. Looks like Derrel's got some internet problems, by the way. He hasn't come back. I'm just letting you know. He has not arrived back. When he went frozen and I pulled him out, my screen was black. Yeah. So the video portion of it was shut down. So I'll bring Derrel back the second that he is here. Now, the other reason why I'm asking Derrel these questions, and this is for everybody out there, the idea about who's visiting us and why and where and from where on this planet, we have to go back and seriously think about what we are doing as Homo sapiens right now. What is it that we are doing? We're scanning the universe. We're looking at all the stars. We're logging in planets that are outside of the solar system. We're cataloging them. We're numbering them. We are looking at their atmospheres. We're looking for any techno signatures of alien life. We are out there looking right now. And we are actively pursuing Mars. Now, does the moon count as making us interplanetary? Kind of. I guess it's a planetary body. It's our moon. But going beyond that and going to Mars, that is a big step. That's our goal, is to put humans on Mars, right? Okay. Well, E.T., no matter where they are, and no matter where they are at in their stage of evolution, is wanting to do the same things. And they achieve a certain level of technology and they advance, and then they go and do those things just like we are now. So when we think about that, and the very famous quote, which I'll repeat right now, that you go out on a beach and you pick up a single grain of sand, and you look at it on your tip of your finger. That's our sun. Our sun there are more stars in the observable universe than there are grains of sand on all of the beaches and all of the deserts on planet Earth. That's how vast the universe is. So you pick up that single grain of sand, that's our sun. And then look at the beach that you're on and all of the other beaches of the world, all of the deserts of the world. That's how many suns and stars that are out there. Now, how many of those have planets? Probably every single one. Okay? That's how many planets are out there. So I think about that. That's a huge. So how much are we that ignorant to think that we are all there is with all of that is out there? That's why there has to be an infinite amount of life that knows about us. All right, we've got Derrel. Derrel's back with us. Okay, you back?
I'm here.
Okay, so what I was just telling everybody is that the reason why I was asking you about who's visiting this planet, my answer was infinite, is that the amount of stars in the observable universe, there are more stars and more planets than there are grains of sand on all the beaches and all the deserts on planet Earth.
Yes.
That's a that's a lot of stuff, man. Right? One little grain of sand is our sun. Right? One little grain of sand. So how much, if every one of those grains of sand that represent a star in the universe on planet Earth has at least one planet, we have what, 8, 9 here, depending on what month it is and who's doing the count. That's a lot of life, man. And they're doing the same thing we're doing. They got telescopes, right? They've got satellites, and they're looking for life. How many are looking at you and I right now? A lot. And that's it's got to be a crazy number. And Derrel, how many visit the planet more than once? Right?
Well,
They do a drive by and then they go to the next planet.
Looking for a better restaurant, I guess.
Yeah, you know what? Even though Vegas is pretty cool, and that ship that we're going to be on in a couple of weeks has got a pretty amazing buffet. Yeah. We're going to have a great time. And so that's a pretty good reason for ET to visit. Yeah.
The two things that people often bring up to me concerning the alien and how many there are and so on, and I tell them that no one can give you an exact answer because first of all, they haven't met them all. I haven't. I've met some of these characters that have identified themselves as aliens, but the Drake's equation basically is what says what you're saying. There are infinite amount of galaxies, planets, stars, and so on. So there's got to be. You can't even imagine how many other solar systems and other places are probably inhabited by someone or something. And then it comes down to Fermini was the one that interested me the most because he says, well, all that is undoubtedly true. But the question is, where are they? He said, in fact, if everything's as old as they should be or say they are, there should be like a moon base out in the desert out there. You should have 5 different kinds of aliens over here. In another country, you ought to have 25 different kinds. He said the question comes down to the big one. Where are they? Where are these beings? And anyway, it's the 7 that I identified. Those are the ones that are the fronts. There are other beings, obviously, out there that are, I think some are absolutely horrific, and I think some of them are absolutely godly, just wonderful, amazing, incredible master beings, and so on, angels and all kinds of stuff. But the bottom line for me runs down to the issue of where are they? And I'll give an example. When I was out in LA years ago in late. It was about 10 years ago, a little longer. The scientific group out there, you've got NASA, and then you've got the JPL. The JPL invited me to a meeting they had, which was, I didn't know what it was at the time. It was the Cassini project. And the meeting specifically was, they're patting themselves on the head and having a big to-do because they're going to send the first nuclear-powered spaceship in out space, and it's going to be a fabulous deal. And toward the end of the meeting, after all their discussions and bragging and all that, they finally asked me the question that one of the promoters there said, has anyone else got any questions? And of course, most people are pretty quiet. And I stood up and said, I have one. And of course, they know who I am. They know what I do. Why they invited me to the Cassini project meeting, I have no idea. But anyway, I told them, I said, we went to the moon. I said, JPL is amazing because you guys do the non-human work before we ever get there with the astronauts. You guys do all the hard work, the rovers and all that. You've got rovers on Mars and all these wonderful things. I said, I'm really wondering. I said, since I'm not a scientist and I'm here, I have to ask the question. And they're all just kind of holding their breath, hoping I don't say something stupid, which I did.
Right.
And I said, now we left the moon. Who knows why? Left it there after all the time to get there and the money to get there and everything. Left it, and there's a ton of stuff that needs to be done there. Took a right turn and went out to Mars. Now you guys are doing the incredible stuff out there, rover and everything else. And then all of a sudden you stopped, took a left turn, and went back toward the other part of the solar system, and you're flying the first nuclear-powered spacecraft toward the Jovian system. And I'm wondering what you found out there that made you leave Mars and head to that system. I'm telling you, you could have heard a pin drop in that entire building. No one said a word. And then all of a sudden, the guy looked at me and just kind of sneered and said, "Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Free drinks and gifts for everyone in the back of the room. Enjoy yourselves." That was the answer. Keep your mouth shut. But if the fact is that one of the top NASA scientists wrote a book called Ringmakers of Saturn. It's about a $500 book. You can get it for free if you know how to do it on the internet. The point is, it's a book written about the ring makers of Saturn, that those rings were made. And if you watch carefully what NASA does, not what they say, but what they do, and you know what you're doing, you can actually see spacecraft still in the rings, ready for the ring you need to be looking at, Cassini. Mm-hmm. In the Cassini rings.
Here's okay. I've just got one response to that, which I just find it hilarious. When skeptics and debunkers will say, "Well, man, E.T., they go all the way across the universe and they're all this high-tech stuff, man, and they get here and they crash." And my answer is, did you see what we did with Cassini? Right? Yeah. Have you seen how we've landed anywhere? We crash. That's what we do. How do we land on Mars? We surround something with a bunch of balloons and drop it and bounce it off and pray for the best. We're not coming in like, and no, we're bouncing off the planet, hoping that what we flew and launched is going to be in one piece when it's done bouncing across the surface of something. And so don't tell me that ET has got full control. They get here and they lose control, or we shoot it down too. That's the other thing.
That's a distinct possibility.
Yeah, we shoot first, man. Right now, Derrel is packing for this show. I guarantee it. He's holstered right now. I guarantee it. I remember one time. I'm going to tell everybody this little short story. Derrel and I are out to dinner, and I forget where we were at. That doesn't matter. So we're out to dinner, and he's sitting across from me. I'm by myself, and I go, "So, you strapped?" And you go, "Right now?" I go, "Yeah." And you go, "Yeah." At the dinner table at a restaurant. It was just, oh man. Now, I want to talk about when we come back off of the break. I want to jump into implants for a little bit and discuss that. When did you know? Let's go back and we'll set this up for the return when we come back. Did you know what an implant was when you first encountered your first person that was talking about this? Did you have any idea what you were dealing with?
Well, I got an implant when I was 12 years old, and I was wide awake during the event. And again, I hot mic'd them, so I knew what that was about.
So what? Okay, on the hot mic, what did they say? And can you fight back? Can you say no?
You can fight back. There are things that you can do. I write a lot of articles and answer a lot of people, many abductees and contactees questions. I don't care whether people's events are good or bad or whatever, neutral or whatever. The data is what I'm looking for, and so all of it's good data as far as I'm concerned. And you can fight back. I've even written articles, self-defense. Are you ready for this? For intelligence agents.
Well, yeah, and we can talk about that too in a little bit. We talked about it before. I find it so compelling, but I guess what I'm asking is, let's say hypothetically, I'm on a table, right, and I'm cool with everything to a point, and then I see the process setting up for an implant, and I think my response would be, I've been cool with you guys so far, but no, we're not going to do that. Is that good enough?
Not quite, because again, you have to understand the nature of the aliens. And when I say alien, I'm using the term of these 7 kinds of people, entities.
Right.
Those particular guys are under rules to do certain things. They're there to do a job, whatever that job is. It can be very good. It could be to mutilate you. It could be to pat you on the head, tell them that you're special. You're one of our chosen hybrids from Zeta Reticuli or whatever whopper they want to tell you. Most people buy into it. But one of our abductees wanted to defend herself, and it's a true story. And she was crying when I was working with her, and she said, they said, if I give you any more information, they're going to come get my children. And I said, let me ask you a question. Do you think they're going to get them anyway? She said, yes. I said, your whole family are abductees. I mean, they're probably already getting them anyway, and you don't know it yet. So she cried and cried, and there was an airline pilot who was taking hypnotherapy training from me. And he just looked at me, and he's as tough as nails. And he said, man, you got to help her. I said, I know that. I got it. So I said, okay, I'm going to give you some new skills. And if they come back, which I'm sure they will in 2 or 3, 4, 6 months, and the next time they came back, hand to God, true story, little entity comes toward her and doing his thing, and she began to use the techniques that I described to her, and she no longer was afraid. She did not accept his suggestions. And then fasten your seatbelt. She took him under control.
Karate chop to the throat?
Nothing. No violence. He came close to her. She kept instructing him to come closer. And I said, I later told her, I said, sweetie, I said, they're more susceptible to the kind of work that I'm doing than we are to them. We just don't know that. As a result, ignorance is our downfall, so to speak. Anyway, long story short, she reached up and grabbed his eye cover, the black eye piece. It's a cover, it's not his eye. And she tore it off.
Ooh.
And I said, it said, is he moving? Is he in pain? She said, no. And she kept moving, kind of jerked. That's what's that? She said, something's dripping on my arm from his eye socket. I said, is it blood or motor oil or what? She said, I don't know. It's because it's a blue light in the room. If it was red, it would be, liquid. If it was blood, you'd probably see it as blue or dark color. But anyway, she tore the eye cover off, and I slowed everything down to the slow as possible, and had her describe in great detail because I had an artist to do a rendering of it in detail. And the behind the eye was a red stippled screen with little white lines running back and forth in 6 different places in the eye. And then I looked at my if the hypnotist is with me, the airline pilot, I said, like I keep telling you, some of these guys some of them are biological, some of them are biomechanical, and some of them are mechanical. I said, my point is, unless you know what you're dealing with, you don't have a clue. You're just a recipient of whatever the show is. You don't get to know. So anyway, the reason I did that was because I wanted her to bring Freddy Krueger's hat back through the dream, because I know what her experiences are real. We had better physical evidence from this woman than we did all of the abductees I had at the time. She said, well, I'm not very strong. And I said, well, I'm going to do something for you that you don't know about this next time. So they came back a few months later, and I installed my strength in her arm. She just I don't mean picking on women or anything, but I'm a 4th degree black belt in martial arts, and I'm kind of strong, so to speak. And she's not. And she's an older lady, and she just isn't that strong. So the next time he came in, you talk about dumb as a bag of hammers. I mean, dumb. She gets him again and commands him, and he comes all the way to her. She puts her arm clean around him so he can't get it loose or get away, reaches up and grabs his eye cover. Somebody tore your eye cover off the first time. Well, you want to go back and get it done the second time?
Nope.
She tears the whole thing off and holds it very tightly in her hand, because I want her to bring Freddy Krueger's hat, or the eyepiece, so to speak, back through the dream. I want the evidence, because I know it's real. So she holds on to it as best she possibly can, looks at the eyepiece again, the same thing, same story. But this time there are 3 little grays besides him, so 4 total. And there's the larger gray, he's the guy that's in charge. He's pretty sharp. They all had to get on a finger apiece and pry. Each one of them got on a finger and pried that thing out of her hand. It took all 5 of them to get it out of her hand. She was real upset she didn't bring it back. I said, young lady, you made history. I'm not worried about it. A lot of people accused me right after that. That was 1995. A lot of people accused me of making that whole thing. You hypnotized her and made her believe all that stuff. Anybody knows me knows it's just, I won't even pay attention to you. It's just so stupid that somebody make that statement. A year later, 1996, in January, the Varginha incident happens in Brazil. Guess what color eyes the aliens had?
Red.
Bright red. And everybody wrote me back and said, oh my God, you were telling the truth all along. I said, I don't need you to confirm for me what I already know and have known for a long time. When that guy came in my room when I was 4 years old, underneath his eye, right under the very bottom part of the eye, I could see something red. I didn't know what it was. Didn't have a clue at age 4. That's where I got the idea. And,
very interesting.
Yeah.
And now, about, I'm going to say it's about 3 months ago. I do a fader fact every day. I read all these crazy things and I come up with some interesting factoid and read it to the world. And check this out. The fact was, now I'm going to paraphrase a little bit here in case I get it wrong, but it's pretty close. A fox was tagged with a GPS on its ear, okay, in Great Britain. They followed it to Canada. This friggin' fox swam, made it, island hopped, Iceland, Greenland, right? Island hopped, dude, to Canada. And it was like 5,000 miles logged in. And it did it pretty quickly, too. It did it in months, right? Now let's back up for a second. So I read this fader fact. I think it was a fox or, a wolf or something like that. Anyway, so I read the fact. And then this is my twisted mind, Derrel. That's when a skeptic says, why would aliens put an implant in humans? I'll read him that story right there. Right? Right. We do it all the time. How many times do we get to hear the story? Well, Sarah, I'm making up some name, right? Jessica, the great white shark, has now been spotted in Australia. It was in, the Baltic Sea 6 months ago. Well, we tagged it. It's got an implant. That's what we do. Eagles, hawks, animals, things, elk, deer, bison, cows, right? Everything's got a GPS implant on it now. That's what we do. So why would you ask such an ignorant question? Why would ET do that when that's all we want to do, right?
Well, I have a little different take on it. As Stan Friedman and I were on a radio show one time in Roswell, and he said, the radio host said, you do the work with this, the alien implants. And I said, that's the rumor. And the guy says, Stan, what is all this stuff? He said, I have no idea. He said, I guess it's a transponder or something. He said, I don't know. Ask him. He knows. And he said, what do you think it is? And I said, it's not a transponder. It's not a tracking device. I said, they already know who you are and they know where you are. They knew that before they ever implanted anybody.
Okay. I'm going to stop you right there. You're going to tell us when we come back after the break. That's called a setup. Everybody has to wait. Our guest tonight, Derrel Sims. I'm your own Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. Hi, this is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I want to invite you to come to Alaska with me on the Contact at Sea cruise. It is this September 6th through the 13th, 2024. We are on the largest ship in the Pacific Ocean. That's right, the Ovation of the Seas. It's an amazing cruise, and a ship this big is so much fun. We've got lots of activities and lots of great speakers. We are leaving from Seattle to Sitka, Alaska, Skagway, Juneau. We're going to end the cruise in Victoria, BC, and arrive in Seattle on September 13th. We've got a lot of amazing speakers, including we've got Seth Showstack, Scott Walter, Stephen Bassett, Daniel Sheehan, Derrel Sims, Mas Adi, Vivian Chavez, Grant Cameron, Geraldine Orozco, Nisha Johnston, and Melanie Aguirre, and a whole lot more. All you have to do is go to divinetravels.com. You can also go to contact@sea.com. Both are going to take you to a full event schedule. You can check in, look at the boat, get things ready to go, and maybe get a cabin with a balcony. That's what I'm talking about. Come see the whales. Come check it all out. Let's go to Alaska this September 6th through the 13th, 2024 with me, Jimmy Church. Now, when you head to divinetravels.com or contact@sea.com and get signed up, you know what? Use my name, Jimmy Church. I'll see you there September 6th through the 13th, 2024. Let's go to Alaska. This is Jimmy Church. Please visit and explore Egypt this October 3rd through the 14th, 2024 with Billy, Elizabeth, myself, and very special guest and the #1 podcaster in the world, Sean Kelly. It's simple to do. Just go to forbiddenknowledge.com and click on upcoming tours, or click on the link below. We'll see you there. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's fade to black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter @JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black T-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 T-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. Get your Fade to Black T-shirt today. Go Beckley Teppy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Derrel Sims, the alien hunter. Man, I don't get a chance to say that too often. The alien hunter. Yeah. Now, Derrel, GPS transponder, that seems to me to be the obvious use for an implant. What do you mean it's not?
Because you don't think like an alien. If you think like a human, it's a perfect explanation. It makes sense. It's what we do. So we attach meaning to the alien about things like what we do. In other words, if they operate on somebody, you say, well, we operate on animals, so it's the same thing. But if you look at the evidence of it, you see that that's not really true. There's just a lot about the alien, I'm telling you, we don't know. And you say, well, how do you know that? Well, you kind of have to hot mic them to get the rest of the story. Otherwise, you're only getting what an abductee or a contactee tells you based on what they think or what you analyze from listening to these stories.
So what's the use? What do they use for?
Well, let me go back a little bit to kind of qualify myself a little bit for the audience. In 1994, I was invited to do an AMA-sponsored program, American Medical Association program, for 250 doctors and surgeons. And it was a paid medical presentation. They paid me to speak, to give an education to these doctors on medical complications of alleged human-alien contact, specifically implants. I actually have that. I did the whole presentation. It's on film. I've never made it available, but you can read about it in one of my books if they want to go to alienhunter.com and get them. But anyway, during that presentation, I didn't expect anybody to believe a word I was saying. I mean, not one word. So I said, what I have done is provide you some x-rays and other things to show you what we're finding in these people. And at this point, that doesn't prove much of anything. It could be a foreign object. It could be metal from a spatter effect from a hand grenade. It could be anything as far as you're concerned. So at that point, we'd not removed anything from anyone formally. We did next year. I said, but I'm going to give you something that I think will really help you. And they said, what's that? And I said, I'm going to give you 5 predictions. When we remove an alien implant, we're going to find one or more of these things to be true. And medically, they're not going to be true from your point of view. So that's your way to disprove me and to totally discredit me. When we do our first surgeries, you can write back and say, aha, everything you said was wrong. Didn't happen. The only problem is it did happen. The predictions were this. I told these doctors that if these objects are alien in origin, alien, not human, alien in origin, there will be no chronic or acute inflammatory cells around the object. Well, any doctor will tell you if you get a splinter or a spatter effect or anything, any bullet or anything, the body attacks that object and surrounds it, tries to wall it off. If it can't wall it off, it'll become an infection, either chronic or acute. I said, that will not happen with these objects. There will be no cells like that present. Well, of course, they didn't believe that, but it doesn't matter. I'm giving them the ammunition to shoot me with if I'm wrong in my dissertation. I said there will be nerve cells present that are inappropriate to the affected area. The nerve cells will not be representative of what was supposed to be there. 3, the objects will be absent from discernible technology. There will be no discernible technology in the objects whatsoever. Of course, now they're really scratching their heads. I said the next one is the metal or plastic or ceramic implants, whatever they are. In my opinion, the things that we have seen that were expelled from people, but not surgically removed. We did have some implants, but nothing that you could say came out of people because you surgically removed it and it's on film. We didn't have that at that time, but we did have some objects expelled from people. And these objects, I told them, I said that I currently have are from 5 to 50 years old and out of date. I said the things they're going to be doing in the future, in my opinion, will be biological. And if I said the reason I'm telling you doctors this, I'm giving you a heads up, one, to prove me wrong if I am, and that when we do our first surgeries, and number two, for you to start looking for things. I brought 2 women there to testify to these doctors of the difficulties they had explaining their abduction events and so on to their doctors. And these 2 women that were there were pretty rough on these doctors. They were pretty tough. And they said, I said, so what I want you to do is start checking. If people come in and they claim alien abduction, go ahead and, do the giggle factor to yourself, but examine them and examine the area in the way that I mentioned to you. And I said, you're going to be real surprised when you start checking these people. I said, eventually, I think what's going to happen when we get much further down the road, which I think we're getting close now, is these objects are going to be biological in their formation, and they're going to be hard for you to find because it's going to look like a lump or a bump on a certain person's arm or whatever. And I said, if you do the biopsy, you're going to be really amazed. You're probably going to find something like central nervous system cells inside the little lump. In other words, you're going to find a miniature brain or something there. Something that should never have been there. Well, anyway, long story short, a year later,
you said that was 4. What was the 5th one?
Well, I told them that the objects would be non-discernible. There would be no sign of technology. I said, all this is going to fly in the face of quote unquote science and the medical field and all that. I said, the whole point of all this stuff is that when we remove these objects, this is what we're going to find. And of course, they just absolutely, just couldn't believe it because it's not consistent with medical science at all. It just isn't.
Right.
But anyway, during the first removal, the very first thing we did is I did the hypnotic anesthesia on the 2 patients and on the patient, first one. And basically what happened was we took the objects out and we took them to a pathologist the next day. And I hand carried them myself. And the pathologist looked at it and said, well, this is just, this is an inflammatory response. That's normal. It's natural. I said, undoubtedly, you're totally correct. Never tell a doctor he's wrong. Just agree with him. And I said, but since I'm not a doctor, prove to me that what you're saying is correct. Show me where I would be wrong if I disagreed. He says, oh, no problem. Takes his microscope, starts looking at it, and he says, what in the world? There are no inflammatory cells present. Well, these are not inflammatory cells. Can you tell me what kind of cells they are? And he said, oh my God, no inflammatory cells, not chronic or acute. I said, well, then what is the biological covering made out of? He said, weird. It's made out of keratin. I said, what's keratin? Because I knew what it was. But for the audience, it's your hair, it's your skin, or your fingernails. It's surface stuff. Keratin. Then he said, where did you get this? And I said, well, actually, we removed it for surgery yesterday, deep inside the body next to the bone. He said, that never happened.
Is there, I'm going to come back to this. Is there a typical location on the body that implants are normally found? And I ask that because all of us, including you, Derrel, when we were kids, we never put shoes on, right? So right. If something is found in the feet, if you found something in my feet, don't tell me it's an implant. I've got 50 things in my feet from when I was a kid, right?
No question.
No question. Yeah. But is there, yeah, is there another part of the body where these are normally found?
Yes, but the most interesting thing about these three objects were found in the lady's foot.
Oh,
she came to
okay.
me on TV. She said, "Mr. Sims, I've heard you on TV, and I think I may have an implant of some kind." And I looked at her X-rays, and I said, "Those look like surgical clips from an osteotomy." And she said, "That's what my doctor said."
I don't know what that is.
I said,
What
"Well,
is
those
that?
are just basically little metal clips a doctor might put in to adjust something in your toe."
Oh, okay,
And-
gotcha.
And
Okay.
and I said, "Well, that's a reasonable response." And she said, "I'm sure it is." She said, "Mr. Sims, I've never had a surgery in my entire life." Then I talked to her mother, and she agreed. We looked at the medical records, and then the doctor scratched his head because he knows her, and she's never had a previous surgery. So at that point, we got these three metal objects inside these biological cocoons that are made out of keratin, fingernail hair, or a claw on an animal, as an example. That's keratin.
Well, isn't like a deer horn is keratin?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
yeah.
The best way to think
A
about it.
hoof, a hoof.
So,
or
but it's
whatever,
all,
right.
but it's all external. I mean, that's the whole point.
Right.
So the doctor, when the pathologist looked at this, he just said, "Well, that's just not you. That didn't happen." I said, "Well, I've got 17 witnesses, got it on film, 2 doctors, and I'm a hypnotic anesthesia therapist myself, and I did hypnotic anesthesia on the patient." And he said, "I don't care if God was present." He said, "Keratin does not grow inside the body, period." Of course, that's exactly what I want to hear. I want to hear it's impossible, because that's where it came from. So that's a first important thing. And the things that we said we would find, those were all present. The second thing we found, and which I tell people this, but almost no one listens, NIDS, the National Institute for Discovery Science, under Bob Bigelow, when they came to me the first time, 5 of them on the phone, they said, "Well, you're able to find physical evidence that no one else even knew existed." And he said, "You seem to be able to find a lot of it. How do you account for that?" And he said, everybody listening on this phone, he said, they're all PhDs. And one guy's got 2 PhD and an MD. And I knew who that was. I knew who he was talking about. But I said, well, it's not due to any high intelligence for sure that I'm able to do that. I said, if you want to find a donut, go find a cop. Well, they didn't laugh. They didn't think that was funny at all. I didn't tell it for a joke. I told it for a fact. Because
Right.
that's what they always do. You go ask NIDS what they do. They hire ex-special agents from the FBI and everything. You're not going to find physical evidence from an alien from a special agent from the FBI. Bad choice. They said, "Well, who would you look for?" I said, "Look for a Native American tracker that's an abductee. You'll find all the evidence you need."
Now, okay, so the keratin is the shell in most cases, not in every case, certainly,
Sure,
I'm sure
sure.
of that. But what's on the inside?
Okay, I'm going to truncate. First of all, NIDS, all 18 of their scientists wanted me to give them several implants to have them studied. Of course, I had these 3 objects and the object out of the man's hand. He had an object out of his hand. We took that out as well. Well, guess what? They're all 4 related. These 2 people don't. The 2 abductees don't even know each other. The object in his hand is what's in her feet.
What do you mean related?
They're
Like
we
distant
found out.
cousins?
We
Or-
found
or-
no. The objects are related. The
Oh,
alien
the object.
That's the object.
That's even crazier. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
wild. So the National Institute for Discovery Science developed a special microscope that was able to. It had a housing on it, a globe that captured all the gas. Where they fired a laser into the little implant, and the gas went into the globe, and they captured it, and they were able to analyze it right there with a microscope. And they found 11 different elements in this rare metal that we found. These 3 out of this woman's foot and 1 in the man's hand. So what's so important about that? Well, according to the National Institute of Discovery Science, under the auspices of Los Alamos Labs and New Mexico Tech University, the metal, there's no question it's extraterrestrial. I told them it was anyway. And they said, how do you know it's extraterrestrial? I said, well, first of all, look at the metal. And they looked at the metal, and New Mexico Tech defined it perfectly. They said it's from the Widmanstatten or the Yautsheng meteorite. So these meteorites are little needle-like forms about a quarter-inch long. Where in the world did you get it? These are extremely rare. You can't just go find this stuff. And I never told them anything. I didn't want them to know. And so they kept doing their study, and we did the Mohs test for hardness and all kinds of neat things about it. But the most interesting, well, they found 11 different elements surrounding the metal that didn't make any sense. That should not have been on a meteorite, period. Second of all, how did meteorite get inside a human body?
Right.
Third of all, how to get inside a human body with a person's own, I'll give you a hint. How do you get keratin around a little metal implant object? You take a scoop mark out of someone's leg, and there's your keratin right there. And the body won't reject it because it's the person's own skin.
Mm.
Now,
I'm kind of freaking out right now.
Yeah, it gets wild. Everybody thinks the metal object, and NIDS and everybody else did. They all do the same thing. I told Bob Bigelow, I said, he said, you don't seem to be excited. He said, NIDS has never voted, all 18 scientists voted for you. You should be jumping them down. It's great. They're going to pay $22,000 for the study. And I said, Bob, you guys are all the same. You're all you want to know is it extraterrestrial or not. You think that's the answer. It isn't. And I said, go ahead and test it anyway. You'll find it's extraterrestrial, and they did. But they never asked the real question. How does it work? What is that thing? What's the real story? Well, the real story.
That's the $1 million question, it's
not the metal object. It's the biology that surrounded it. I'll give you 2 hints. First of all, a Nobel laureate came and talked to us, and he said, Mr. Sims, if you can replicate that keratinous material, replicate that in the laboratory in the same way that you found it in this alleged abduction, you may have a Nobel laureate find right now. He said, organ donor rejection may be passé as a result. And I said, well, I was born at night at 7:30 at night, and I was born in Texas, but it wasn't last night. What laboratory do you think I could send any of this to and actually expect that it would return back to me unstolen, unduplicated, somebody not taking a few microns sliced off and developing their own research?
Yeah, right.
And he looked at me and laughed and said, not one. And I said, like I said, Texas at night, but not last night. I think I'll just keep the biology to myself until I can find someone I can trust or can go into partnership with or whatever. The second thing, that's number one. Number two is inside I had them remove a certain amount of tissue. Inside there was found a proteinaceous coagulum. What does that mean? Well, it's a real fancy way of saying it's a biological soup, and that's the real answer to the implant. The biology is the implant. It's not the metal stuff. It's not. That's part of the system. That's not it. The reason I said this is all passé and one day they'll be using biological implants is because the biology is you. You're the one they're looking for. Somebody didn't come across 100,000 light years or wherever you think they came from. I don't care where. Make up your own story. They didn't come all that way to look at pond scum. They came to look at you because you have something they don't. Now that is incredible. How do you know that? Well, when you hot mic the alien, you tend to hear these things. You find things out. And they're never going to sit there and just tell you, oh, well, the real reason we're here is this. They'll tell you, but we're going to have to erase it from your memory. That's not going to work very well. So the proteinaceous coagulum, like I told Bigelow and the rest of them, I said, it is in fact, that's what you're looking for. That's the biology. And anyway, I said some of the implants that we have that we find are, goodness sake, some of them are metal, some of them are studied at the University of Houston at the superconductivity lab. That one was literally a shell like a little tiny egg as big as a seed. It was hollow and it had an open end to it, and we think it housed a biological camera. They got the biological camera out from one of our abductees, but they missed the shell, and I have the shell. I got it. And I'll be bringing a lot of this stuff with me on the cruise, the implants and several pieces of UFOs or expelled metal from UFOs. I'll be bringing a ton of stuff that people can look at, handle, and take pictures of if you like. Absolutely amazing stuff. But the key is not the little metal objects you see or the implants or whatever. The key is the biology.
So if the biology, I need to explore this. I'm here to learn. Do they come back and retrieve said implant and then use that for further study? Or what's the purpose of putting the implant in? And I understand the biology part, which makes perfect sense. But to leave it and never retrieve it for future research and data collection, what's the purpose of an implant if you're not going to come back and get it?
Well,
or do that?
A lot of the implants we find in people are found accidentally. I look at hundreds of x-rays every year, and most of the abductees I talk to are not implantees. They think they are, but they're not. You look at their x-rays and you can see what the objects are, or if there is a foreign object. And I have a real good sense of looking at thousands of these x-rays of what I'm looking for, what I'm looking at,
Sure,
what the alien does. And plus, I've conducted 27 surgical interventions from India to the United States. So I actually know what I'm doing. Anyway, the bottom line is simply this. The short answer to your question, if an object is there in the midst of the proteinaceous coagulum, the biological soup, so to speak, surrounding the implant, the object itself, it's easier to think of it this way. This is not the answer, but it'll make sense to your audience, I think. Think of the little metal object or whatever, plastic or whatever it is, whatever they made it out of. Think of that as the little hard drive. And the biology is what it's hooked up to. If you take the little hard drive away, all you get is that. If the biology stays in the person, you still have your communication system.
And is that a data, that hard drive? And this makes sense to me if I'm following you correctly, that it's collecting the data just like a smartwatch would, right? The data of our biology, and then that's then transmitted back to ET.
Well,
you're going to say yes and no. I can already feel this.
To me, the data that one of the 7 aliens are collecting here, that information is going to someone else for another reason. Not another alien, not one of the 7. Those guys are just doing their job. Someone else is taking the data and doing something with it.
Right.
Now, it is an illustration. This will get a little uncomfortable for your audience, and I don't mean for it to be that way. We had a mass abduction of a family here in Houston years ago, and the abduction literally split the family up. The kids were old enough, 16 and older, they could go to wherever they wanted, and they did. They split up and left the family. The whole thing just tore the family up. They were not able to assimilate it and deal with it. So the husband and wife split up. The kids went their own way. And I still had contact with them. The wife finally, a year later, came to me and said, I want you to work with me and find out what happened. And I said, I wondered when you were going to get back to me. And she said, well, I know you worked with my son and my husband, and you've done some amazing things. I need to know. And I said, okay. And she said, I have a problem. I said, what's the problem, young lady? She said, I think my doctor sexually abused me. And I said, okay. Well, I set up the camera, and my assistant's female. And she said, I don't want her here, and I don't want the camera on. I said, that camera is for your protection and for mine. Period. That camera stays and she stays, or that's never going to happen. I don't know you. You don't know me. I don't do that. This is all stays professional, and that's just the way it is. She said, okay. Here's the short version of the story. She said, what are we going to do? And I said, we're going to do some closed eye processing. She said, what's that? I said, well, just close your eyes. And she did, and her head fell forward. And I said, as we go back to that night, everything's fine. And I want you to remember what's happening just to you. And she says, stop it. And she slaps behind her rear end. I said, what is that? She said, he's touching me. I said, who's touching you? She said, my doctor. And I said, okay. Have you seen him? Because I know it's not her physical doctor.
Right.
We're using his imagery. This is what gets therapists sued in a court of law, and you will not win, because they'll bring somebody in like me, and I'll prove in a minute he was probably in China on vacation.
Right.
And you're done. So anyway, she kept slapping, and she's a very moral lady, Roman Catholic, fine lady. And she kept slapping, and then she said, stop it. And I said, are you sure it's your doctor? And she said, I'm absolutely sure. This is what's going to get a therapist in a lot of trouble here. And I said, okay. And I said, do you see your doctor? No. I said, all right. I said, are you in your doctor's office? Yes. I said, he's got a number of rooms there, doesn't he? Yes, he does. I said, the room you're in, I want you to look in the room and count how many corners are in that room. In spacecraft, there aren't any corners. And she turns her head to total circle over and over. There aren't any. And I started yelling at her. I said, count the corners in the room. And the reason I did that was I'm trying to get her to hallucinate. And I can't get her to do it. Why? Because she's in truth. And
Right.
Boy, she's kept looking around. She can't figure out why and she's in her doctor's. She's in a doctor's office, not the.
Not the.
Exactly.
So, which butt cheek did she slap, and was that where the implant was?
No, she kept smacking him, and finally, I said, "If you see the doctor or any part of him, let me know." And then a few minutes later, she screamed, "Oh my God!" She saw a long white hand with 4 fingers on it. And it molested her. And she cried and cried and cried and everything. She said, this is not something I do. And anyway, after I brought her out of her, there was no implant in this particular case.
Okay.
But it was a molestation. And anyway, she says, she cried. And I said, she died. I just don't understand why they would do that to me. And I said, well, since I'm probably never going to see you again, I think you deserve an answer. And so I'm going to tell you what I've never told anybody else. She said, what's that? And I said, the entity that did that had no clue, no sexual interest in you whatsoever. He doesn't have genitalia. He knows what to do because he's been instructed what to do. And he did it for someone else who lives in a hexagonal tube somewhere, and that's his drug. and you may be only
Didn't
one of
you-
the number of women that get that
Didn't
done to them.
you, in the little time that we have left, a memory's coming back to me. I had a screen block. Didn't you introduce me to Terry Lovelace?
I think I did. Yes.
Yeah, that was you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And in his case, when you introduced me to him, his case, he didn't come forward for like another 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah. Well, I broke his case in 19. I think it was. I've got the date, but I broke his case in Houston, Texas. I brought him down, had him do his presentation. He kept it quiet for years after that.
Yeah, he kept it quiet for
he
years,
did.
and I talked to him. Not again. I'm having screen memories come and play here, Derrel, and you're much smarter than me, so you can walk me through it if I'm incorrect. But I remember, if this is quite a while ago, but I remember, with his permission, you ended up showing me his X-rays, right? Right? Am I right? And is my memory correct? Okay.
That's correct.
And those were some of the craziest things. Then of course, his case and his book and he ended up going public, but there was reasons why he probably didn't have to go public because of his job. He's a public figure, for the state and so forth. But he chose to, and that was he's a very unique situation to have, a public official like that, come forward with that kind of experience, and then have everything else representing the case, which was the X-rays, his friends, and the story itself. It was pretty extraordinary, wasn't it?
It was. I've like I said, I worked his case a long time ago, and I know a lot about his case that he doesn't even know yet, but I've never told him the rest of it. But it's a good case. I have not determined that he had an implant. He told me he had these objects in his calf of his leg. I said, those are called Baker's cysts. Those are not implants. I said, people have them at your age, and they could easily be mistaken for implants. They're not. And anyway, he thought he had one up in his thigh, and I said, well, I have a possible answer for that as well. But I said, it doesn't make any difference whether you have an implant or not, Terry. Your case is golden. It's true. You're truthful. I don't have a problem with your case at all in that regard, none whatsoever. So you don't have to have an implant. That's not a badge of courage, so to speak. It's people have had them. I had mine, like I said, at 12 years old, but it took me when I got my implant at age 12. I woke up out of dead sleep, 3 o'clock in the morning. I heard my mother's voice, which doesn't make any sense because they're in the other bedroom, down the other end of the house. The doors are shut. How would you hear your mother's voice as clearly as someone speaking in your head, mimicking her voice? She told me to go outside. My mother would never tell me to do that in the middle of the night. Go outside, Derrel, and 12 years old, and look at the new star. There's a new star in the Pentine. And weirdly enough, the Pentine is supposedly a star system, which doesn't exist, but I knew what it was. So I walked out. I got up, walked out of the. I didn't wake up either. I mean, I was switched on. Walked outside, saw this bright light coming across. Now this is Holloman Air Force Base is only 12 miles outside Alamogordo, and White Sands Missile Range is out just a few miles past that. But anyway, I saw this huge bright light coming across the city toward me above. It doesn't make any sense. It's like an airplane, but it was way too low. It's just slightly higher than houses. And that was the UFO. The next thing I know, the bright flash of light, and I'm inside this circular room lying on I call it the slab, and with my feet elevated about 11 degrees. And the same entity that always picks me up is there, the little gray, and his boss, the other gray, the taller one, the smart one, he's there. And I can overhear what they're saying. And I began to cry. The reason I began to cry was because I knew what they were going to do. I heard, and the thing about the alien, when they explain things to you, it's in visual images, even though it's sound. And the point is that you get the information clearly in your head. I did, but I didn't get the screen memory. The screen memory was something else. This was the actual information that they were discussing among themselves. I overheard what they were going to do. And when I got older, I was only 12 then. When I got older at New Mexico State University, one of the first things I did was get an advanced psychology class, and I wanted to study the brain and the psychology of it and find out what it was they did. Because I wanted to know. And I told a little bit of this information to Dr. Bob Wood, and he looked at me and said, I want to ask you a question. And I said, he said, how old do you think the alien is? And I said, I'll get laughed off the set if I tell you that. I said, I don't mind telling you, but I don't want everybody else to hear. And by that time, everybody's coming back to Coke break. And he said, no, I want to know what you think.
Mm.
He said, I don't care what everybody else thinks. And I said, the aliens, they're no more than 15 to 50 years ahead of us. And everybody there,
really?
all the ufologists and everybody started laughing their heads off. They busted out the biggest belly laughs. Everybody's laughing except for two people, me and Dr. Bob Wood. Then he looked at me and said, those are the exact figures that I came to based on my research of back engineering. They're no more than 15 to 50 years ahead of us. I said, because the beings that we're talking about here, the so-called, the seven, the alien, so-called, I said, there's a lot they don't get. That's why they make mistakes. Anyway, long story short, I studied this phenomena very well, and I realized that I said the procedure they did on me when I was 12 was no more than 15 to 50 years ahead of where we were at.
Yeah, we have, okay. We've just got a short amount of time left, but what you just said was very interesting. There's a TV series, maybe you've seen it. It's called 3-Body Problem. Have you seen it yet?
I have not.
Have you heard of it?
I have not.
Okay. Well, Derrel, take your writing utensil and write that down. 3, number 3, body problem. It's on Netflix. It's extraordinary. It's insane. Now, okay, but they bring up something in this series, alien invasion thing, but it's really well done. It came out about a month ago. 8 episodes. Watch it, and so forth. Anyway, they bring up this point, and the aliens, ET, say to a couple of people here on Earth that they are going to block and stop our science. And we ask them why. And they do, by the way. They block the science. They said, right now, we are more advanced than you. It's going to take us 400 years to go from one side of the universe to here. By the time we get here, if we don't stop your science, you are going to be more advanced than us.
You'll be the alien.
Yeah. And we'll be able to stop the invasion. And because they're going to be on their ships, right? Their technology is going to slow down. They've left their home planet. And that made such a crazy thought experiment for me personally. I thought, man, that makes an awful lot of sense.
Thank you.
Going back to what Bob Wood and you discussed, it makes, when you really stop and think about it. Yeah, now there's some out there that's a billion years in front of us, sure, but there are some that are right with us, right. We are, we're an Alcubierre drive away from going faster than the speed of light and going totally interstellar. And I could see that happening maybe almost in our lifetime, right? It might be going on now. We just don't know about it. But that idea,
possible. I don't know.
Yeah, that idea right there, you and Bob Wood, yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, 100%. Do you have, we've got 3 minutes. So let me see if I can get this out of you in 3 minutes. You've got I'm going to start the egg timer. Do you have a favorite, man, that's like saying a favorite child, but do you have a favorite implant patient and story? And part 2, will I be able to see that implant myself?
Yes, and yes. Thank you for the question. It's going to be a lot of fun on that cruise. I'll tell you, we're going to have a lot of fun. You're going to see a lot of strange stuff.
And so, who's your favorite patient? Implantee.
I actually it'd be like having 7 children, and which one's your favorite? Well, they all are. I've got several that are the stories of each are so. The implant case in India was so astounding. It would take a whole show just to even tell it, but it just rattles your case. But the point is that the implant, I'll have that there as a good example. She's an excellent one. The original lady that we did the implant with and the man, both of them are incredible because the implants that the original 2, the man and the woman, their cases are inextricably tied to each other, though they do not even know each other and didn't even like each other when they met.
The case in India, when you got back from India, we did a show on that. That was quite a while ago. And I had you sent me, I don't know if we never showed them on the air, but you sent me pictures of everything with the doctors and the operating room that you guys did everything in. I remember that. So I'm going to be able to see that implant.
Absolutely.
Oh man.
And the biology.
Derrel, you're the very best. I'm going to say it. The alien hunter.
I love it. Love the way you say that.
Oh man, I love you, man. And so I'm gonna see you, and believe it or not, man, like 2.5 weeks.
That's correct.
You and I are gonna go head out on the open ocean. We're gonna go see some glaciers. We're gonna go to Juneau. We're gonna go to Sitka. Man, I'm so looking forward to that. Whales. We'll get some sky watching in. We're gonna eat some good food, but we're gonna hang out with a couple of 100 friends, and we are gonna have an absolute blast for a week. Yep. So I'll see you then. Until then, be safe. And for everybody out there, the Alien Hunter and the links are below. Very simple. TheAlienHunter.com. Go and check out all of Derrel's work and his books, and everything is right there. Derrel, be safe. Have a safe flight up to Seattle, and I'll see you in 2 weeks, my friend.
See you in 2 weeks.
The very best, Derrel Sims. Thank you, brother. Derrel Sims, and that will wrap our Monday night here on Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church, and let's see, what are we doing tomorrow night? Tomorrow night, Lon Strickler is with us. Tomorrow night, Mothman and winged humanoids, all of that and much more. I will see everybody tomorrow night. Until then, all I've got is go Beckley Tappy. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go back, Lee Tappy.